What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome in to the writer's room. I am joined by Alec tonight. We got another session on Sunday afternoon. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Hope everyone's enjoying that. Alec, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Just another day.
It's all you can ask for. Just another day. Make the best with the hand that you're dealt. That's all you can do. And today we got a jam-packed episode. We're going to be talking about, honestly, it's kind of funny. We got a jam-packed episode. We didn't really write a whole lot of substance this week, you and I, but we still got a lot to talk about. So True. I'll jump into the first point, and I think this is probably the most lighthearted point, and I'll plug your article. But how about Josh Allen? How about Josh Allen throwing out that first pitch? What did you think? How did he do? What are your initial thoughts on it?
Honestly, I think for the city of Buffalo, it was great seeing QB1 go out and throw out the first pitch in an MLB game. I think that looks great for the Bills, for Buffalo. Everybody loved it. I think the pitch obviously could have been a little bit better. But, I mean, he pitched from where the normal pitchers pitch, and it's been a long time since he's thrown a ball like that.
That's like my main takeaway from this whole thing because, yeah, it probably wasn't the best pitch, but he did it from the rubber. Mm-hmm. He did like a full windup. Yep. He brought a freaking glove to the mound. Like, you don't see that. Like, he took it really seriously, but he also didn't take it seriously at all. So I thought it was a really good balance. And you're right. It's great for the city of Buffalo. Like, we haven't had an icon like that really to do things like that around the city.
Yep.
In forever, like probably since like Jim Kelly. Yep. Yeah. Like I was going to say like, oh, maybe Mario Williams or like Terrell Owens, but like those were really specific circumstances. Like, oh, we just paid Mario Williams a lot of money or, hey, look, Terrell Owens is in Buffalo. Let's give him the key to the city or whatever the hell we did. Right. But yeah, it's a very different scenario, but it was fun to see. It's a spectacle. Like that's why we all tuned in. It was a talking point on Twitter. It was fun to see. I didn't watch the game at all, but I mean, I watched the first pitch.
Yeah, exactly.
It was from our boy Josh Allen. And then I'll plug my article real quickly, but it was a really quick one this week. I just wanted to talk about the defensive linemen coming off of the Air Raid Hour where Judge and Tilt talked a lot about the defensive line battles and stuff like that. But we'll be jumping into defensive line battles specifically more later on in this show. But I would like to specifically talk about the news pertaining to the Buffalo Bills and a new stadium. And I really want to get your opinions on ramifications, what it might mean for the future of the Buffalo Bills, what it might mean for us as fans. I just wanted to get your initial ideas and your initial thoughts on it. So when you heard that there's going to be a new stadium, were you happy? Were you sad? Were you upset? How did you feel?
I was kind of in the middle. Like, obviously, I'm happy to get a new stadium because that's one of the things holding back Buffalo from getting a Super Bowl is that our stadium isn't up to date. So with the new stadium, we'd be able to host a Super Bowl, and that'd be extremely cool. But obviously, losing the stadium that a lot of people grew up in and watched the Bills play in forever for a long time, it's tough to watch it go.
Yeah, there's a lot of like sentimental value when it comes to that stadium. Like,
yeah, for sure.
I think it was on the Rico report. Pierre was saying like that's a really nice way of saying it's old by just saying it has character, and it's funny because it does have character. Like
a lot of character.
It's kind of like the whole same thing with Lambeau Field. It's like, I mean, that's a different situation because of ownership and how it's not really like owned by a specific person and it's owned by like the city and all of that stuff. But this, like, there is a legacy and something to be said for historical monuments, buildings, facilities, whatever it may be. And Bills Stadium, Highmark Stadium, whatever the hell you call it nowadays, there's something to be said for keeping that historical landmark there. But if we need to, if renovations are too much and it's just not worth putting money into something old, you might as well just get something new and not have to put money into it for another 10, 15 years after initial investment. So I understand it from that point. But I'll ask you, would you be upset if it was outside of Buffalo, inside? Like, what do you think about that move, like that location, where it should be? Should it maintain in Orchard Park, or should they move it more downtown? What do you think?
I mean, I'm a little biased because I live 10 minutes from the stadium, so I want it to stay in Orchard Park, and I believe it should. Also, the city of Buffalo couldn't handle a stadium like that with traffic and everything. Like, the streets aren't made for that. So I believe it's going to stay in Orchard Park, and that's it.
Yeah, I like asking you because I know that you're from the area, and me, like, it doesn't impact me at all anymore, which is kind of sad. But like, really, I hear new stadium and I'm like, okay, cool. Like, all those ancillary benefits that you explained, like the Super Bowl, the chance to host a Super Bowl, like that's something that impacts me. Like, that would be awesome because I don't make it to games every week out here in LA, but like, it'd be awesome being out here in LA. You know, maybe the Bills they're eliminated from the playoffs, or maybe they're in the playoffs and they get a chance to go host the Super Bowl in Buffalo, but we don't get that chance if you don't have a requisite stadium to do it. So yeah, it's interesting. I think I saw Clay was posting some stuff on Twitter about his ideas for where to put it. I think Rico was saying that we should put it downtown to influx the traffic and get more stuff happening downtown. Make it more hip and poppin'. Yeah, there's reasons for both sides, but I think the biggest thing to fans, I actually read this in the article that I don't know if it was Thad Brown that wrote it was Thad Brown. He was talking about how like the main goal of this whole thing is to keep the vibes that Orchard Park gives to the fans, like keep that not in the city vibes, but keep that tailgate thing going. Like all of that, they want to keep that. Like, that's so important. Speak on it.
Like, in the city of Buffalo, if we were to move the stadium downtown, there wouldn't really be good spots to tailgate. There wouldn't be as many lots available to actually tailgate in. That would definitely change the dynamic of the games and of the fan base.
Oh, this is a good point from Jason. He says, we don't have the infrastructure to host a Super Bowl. Nowhere enough motel rooms or anything like that. That is a great point. Yeah, that impacts part of it. Yeah, that's actually really interesting because it goes way deeper than just the stadium. It goes into the market itself, just the Buffalo market itself. So that's a little depressing, Jason. But I mean, hopefully we can figure that out. Obviously not us, but you know, the great.
They're starting to build a couple more
Buffalo.
hotels here and there, so maybe eventually we can get there.
Yeah, hopefully we can get there. I'd like to see Buffalo hosted in the snow Super Bowl. That awesome.
Would be so cool.
They don't do that though. Like, that doesn't happen. They're like, oh, let's get our Florida Super Bowl. Like, we got to get that nice warm weather. No, that would be awesome. Like a snow bowl, like that Colts Bills game back, the McCoy touchdown game. Yep. That would be an awesome Super Bowl.
Yes, that'd be crazy.
It would flip the game on its head though. Like, imagine two good offenses going into that. Yeah, everything changes. That would be it actually segues perfectly into what I was going to ask next. Are you partial to wanting a dome or keeping it open air? What do you think?
Open air. I think the winds in Buffalo change so many games. The weather in Buffalo changes so many games, changes people's game plans. I think that we need to keep it open air so we can keep that. Some people call it an advantage. I would just say it's coming and playing in the conditions.
Yeah, I definitely want to keep it open air. I'm sure you've heard the rumors that they're talking about having that kind of like canopy type thing that Hard Rock Stadium has, which should kind of mitigate the winds, like the swirling winds inside the stadiums or inside the bowl itself. And I mean, I could get behind it a little bit just for the sake of the fans, but I also want to keep those swirling winds for the players and what's going on the field. I like having the elements. I really do. There's something about that for the Bills where it's like, you look back to that Steve Tasker promo commercial where it's like, hey, it's going to be chilly or whatever he says. Yeah, like
chills every time.
Exactly. It's like those are the things you think about when you think about the Buffalo Bills. Like, rookies getting drafted to Buffalo, things like that. They're all like, oh, all I know about Buffalo is it's cold. Like, things like that. Like, that really does get in the head of opponents. Like, they actually do think like, oh shit, it's going to be cold. Like, do I wear sleeves? Do I go like sleeveless? Do I like take it like a man and go sleeveless? Like, all those little things. It's like, that's actually built into playing Buffalo in December, January, all that stuff. I want to keep it. I want to keep it too. Deal. Yeah, it's a huge deal. So, honestly, I'd like to keep that competitive advantage. Like you said, it's just the conditions. I don't know if it's so much of a competitive advantage, but I'd like to keep it.
Completely agree.
So moving on to the next point off of that. So this whole topic of the Bills moving, it's all tentative, it's all potential. Like, it's something they want to do and they're trying to pinpoint a time and set a timetable. Right. But the fact of the matter is, I believe Thad Brown said in his article that it would take like 3 to 5 years, and they don't know exactly when they get started. But the lease is up in Orchard Park in 2023, I believe. So even if they started right now, there might be this area where the Bills don't have a place to play because their lease is up and they're still in progress of building a new stadium. So thoughts are, where the hell do they play? And this has sparked a lot of like rumor mill type of stuff, like what's going to happen in those like purgatory years where the Bills don't necessarily have a home. And we got talking about this, and we were trying to brainstorm stuff before the show, like where they would play. Yep. And I know the initial rumor is Penn State, Happy Valley. But yeah, you want to share some of yours, some other ones that you were thinking of?
The Bills have played in Toronto before, so that could be a possibility. Personally, I don't like that idea. I think that takes away a lot of Bills fans from Buffalo. Not everybody wants to travel all the way over the border, drive all the way to Toronto, and then go watch a Bills game. But another option I heard was the Carrier Dome, and I feel like that'd be pretty cool. I think that would be probably the best option of the 3 options that I've heard.
Yeah, it's funny because I also thought of the Carrier Dome, and it's totally contrary to what we were talking about, the whole open air thing, but it's also it's a Band-Aid solution. Like, we don't want the Bills playing in a dome. We want the Bills playing in a place with a lot of seats, a lot of ways to get people to spectate the game. And you talked about it with Toronto. It's like, yeah, it kind of sucks for Bills fans that are in Toronto and they have to come across the border to the United States just to come see a game in Buffalo. And then conversely, we would have to go to Canada to watch a game in Toronto. I just think it's too much for a full season. But yeah, Syracuse seems attainable. I don't know how far Penn State is from Buffalo.
It's a little over 3 hours.
Yeah, like I feel like Syracuse would be preferred then.
It's about the same drive, like 2.5.
Oh, right, because Syracuse. I'm from Rochester, so I just assume it's only an hour and a half. Right. But no, Rochester's just smack dab in the middle. I think Syracuse would be my preferred location, just because it's like in the area, it's good facilities that we know of. Yeah, keeping it in New York, all of that stuff. Still would be the only team in New York. Yeah, that would suck. Imagine us going to Happy Valley and it's like there's no New York football anymore for like those 2 years. But yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. The main thing I read was that these purgatory years that we're speaking on right now, where they may or may not have a home, it seems like they don't even want to get to that point, but they have to plan and make contingency plans for if they can't, renew a lease or, extend the lease or get the stadium built in time, whatever it may be. They're trying their best to make sure that doesn't even happen, but it could. So here we are talking about it. I think it's a lot more fun for us to talk about as fans, because it's like, we get to go like experience the Bills in a new home stadium. But for the players, man, or just for the team itself, it's got to be difficult. Like, I hope we don't get to that point just from a product on the field standpoint. I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope they have a set and stand, like they got their home. I hope they get that, but there's nothing guaranteed in this world, and they're going to have to make audibles on the fly.
Yep, it's a great point.
All right, so we're gonna jump into our second topic, and that's training camp. Obviously, we know minicamp has wrapped up. McDermott called it early. I think it was only like a day early, but he called it early, and now the players got a little bit of a break before they get back to training camp. So I wanted to talk about training camp battles that we're focused on, that we're excited for, things like that. Alec, are there any position groups specifically, any players you're looking at, anything like that you're just really excited for when it comes to training camp?
I'm excited to watch Spencer Brown in training camp. I mean, I'm obviously a big offensive line guy, but I think he has so much potential that when we finally reach that, he's going to be a top 15 tackle in the NFL.
I hope you're right, man. I really do, because going into the draft, I was someone who, for whatever reason, was really low on the idea of drafting a swing tackle. Now that it's happened, I'm a lot more for it. Obviously, because I was pre-draft a little more against that idea, or at least against high investment into that idea. I'm a little upset that we went back to back into that. But now that we have it, like, I really hope both of them pan out and they give us good return on investment, because, I mean, with Josh Allen, Tremaine Edmonds going on those contracts, like, we need to cut corners, and that's a premium position, offensive tackle. Like, if we're looking to patchwork that group in free agency, it's not cheap. It's not cheap. Like, it's much. Yeah, this team is going to be built through the draft once we get those extensions on the books. So I really hope Spencer Brown is someone that contributes. I mean, it would be great to see him contribute this year. The opposite side of that is that we have to sit Darrell Williams or Deion Dawkins, God forbid, to get him on the field. And it's like, I don't want to do that. And I don't want to wish injury on anyone. It's just like, I want to see something from our 3rd round draft pick this year. There's just a chance all we're going to see from him is just quality depth and just being able to be that next man up. And it's a little depressing to talk about it that way, but there's a chance that that's all Spencer Brown and even Tommy Doyle are this year. It's a little upsetting, but I'll jump off of your Spencer Brown topic and I'll jump into what I wanted to talk about with the offensive line as a whole. And it's just such a deep group. Like, this group, I think we have like something like 16, 17 offensive linemen right now for training camp. Like, it's going to be nuts, the competitions that we have going. And we just talked about tackle. It seems like, Spencer Brown and Tommy Doyle are likely going to take back seats unless something happens, injury, them just being unbelievable, and the starters just not looking so good, whatever it may be. It seems like that area of the offensive line specifically is more set in stone than anything else. But the interior seems like a place that a lot of things can happen. How do you feel about the interior of this Bills offensive line?
So I agree with you saying our outside is definitely a lot more locked up and set in stone. Our interior is definitely the weakest point of our line. And I wouldn't even say it's our center. I would say it's both of our guards, our weakest point of our line. But, I mean, honestly, I said it earlier in previous podcast. I want to just run it back. Same offensive line. They had good production last year. We had a good team. I think continuity is huge on the offensive line, knowing who you're playing next to, all that stuff. So I think just run it back as is.
Right. And it's so interesting. Like, I think you said this last podcast, like you just said, and you're saying it again, like how important continuity is. And like we've both mentioned how this is kind of like a chalk starting offensive line that we'd like to see. But at the end of the day, I don't think these guys even played a snap together, this starting 5 that we're projecting. I don't think they even played a snap together last year because of all the injuries that happened and just how untimely they were. I could be wrong on that, but I think they really only played like maybe a snap or 2. And then I think Cody Ford got hurt, or maybe it was Mitch Moore. One of those 3 got hurt in like the Arizona Cardinals game, and they didn't have a lot of snaps. But it's a group, nonetheless, they know each other. They've all been in the building together, all 5 of those guys, Dawkins, Ford, Morse, Feliciano, Williams. They've all been in the building together since last year. They all know each other. They just haven't had that time to gel together on the field, whether it be practice or in games, on the field, and really get to know one another and their habits and their tendencies, things like that. So I'm looking forward to that this year, and I really want to see if they take a step forward. But there's so many guys pushing for spots at guard. It really might not be Ford and Feliciano, despite the investment in Feliciano this offseason, despite the trading up for Cody Ford and giving him every opportunity in the world to give him a starting spot on this line. I think we all see now that left guard is probably the spot that he's going to fit in best, but there's a chance Forrest Lamp beats him out for a job. There's a chance Ike Butker continues developing and he becomes that shoe-in left guard. There's no locking down either guard spots this year, and it's going to be a place that I'm really focused in on when it comes to these preseason games and all these clips we're going to start seeing when training camp comes along. But yeah, you think that it's going to be Ford and Feliciano?
At least for the first game.
Right.
I think we're going to bust out the same offensive line as we had and just see where it goes from there. Depending on how training camp goes and all that stuff, obviously something could happen, but I think week 1 we're going to bust it out with that offensive line. Yeah.
Right. I think so too. It's really tough to sit here and really predict anything that's like not chalk at this point in the off season, because we don't have knowledge of anything. Like we only see what we all see on Twitter, and we're waiting for more information. We don't have eyes on practices. So yeah, we're going off the knowledge we have, and what we have is we think that these are the 5 best guys, but obviously once we see something else, we could eat our words and we could, change how we're thinking. But I think you're right. It's just going to be really interesting to see how it plays out, because it's such a deep group.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll jump into the next group, and we talked a little bit about it last week, but I want to talk about it more because it's just a topic for discussion when it comes to this offseason and this Buffalo Bills offense, and it's the wide receiver group. This wide receiver group it's incredibly deep. When it comes to the guys that we think are locks, you talk about Diggs, you talk about Beasley, Sanders, and Gabe Davis. And a lot of teams don't necessarily have 4 locks. A lot of teams have like 4 guys they're depending on, but that 3rd or 4th guy might not be set in stone. They might not be someone that they know they can depend on. And I don't think we should really be saying that so much about Gabe Davis, but I think we're all very confident in what Gabe Davis is going to bring us this year, because he overwhelmed us. He exceeded expectations last year. So I think we're all a little bit more excited than maybe we should be. But at the same time, like given our perceptual set on Gabe Davis, like why wouldn't we be excited about what he could be in the future? So I'm gonna go beyond position 4, and I know talking point is position 5 and position 6 on this wide receiver group. But I want to ask you, do you want to keep 7? Are you willing to keep 7 wide receivers to lop off 1 guy from another position group?
Personally, yeah, I am, because of the way our offense is shifting over to being an air raid offense and passing the ball a lot more. So always being able to have those fresh legs, always being able to have consistency and down the stretch, and being able to have good guys that can always hold on to the football and catch contested catches or even just burn their man. You need a lot of different wide receivers in a wide receiver room, and I believe we can keep 7 and have a very, very diverse wide receiver room.
So if it is 7, are you keeping those last 3 guys outside of the first 4 that I just mentioned? Is it Hodgins, McKenzie, and Stevenson?
Yeah.
So that's generally where most people are going with their top 7, and I think there's reason to be excited about Hodgins. Obviously, a lot of that is because of the unknown and how we don't exactly know what he is, and this is his pseudo rookie season. So we're all excited about that, but the Bills haven't kept 7 wide receivers, I don't think, since McDermott got here. So there's a chance that they only keep 6, and I think a lot of this is going to depend on special teams, which we can jump into after. But I think a lot of this is going to depend on special teams. But if it is 6, who's the guy you're leaving out? Who is that guy that you're cutting from this team or trying to stash on the practice squad, whatever it may be, if you're forced to keep 6 wide receivers?
If I'm forced to keep 6, personally, my 7 was Stevenson because of his ability to be on kick return and get some reps there done. But he would be my 7th guy, so he'd be my cut. I'd keep Hodgins, McKenzie, Diggs, Beasley, Sanders, and Davis. Right.
No, I think I'm in the same boat. I'm so excited about Stevenson, obviously, because of like the speed, and obviously we all want speed on this offense. We know McKenzie has speed, but for whatever reason, we all love McKenzie, but for whatever reason, a lot of us still want more. And it's not that we want more because we want to replace McKenzie. It's more that we just want more speed on the offense. And when we drafted Stevenson, I think a lot of people were okay with the Bills drafting a wide receiver, but then when they saw speed, they got really excited about it. They were like, oh, this guy really could make an impact on this team. Brian Daboll's got a new weapon, all those things. But at the end of the day, he's a rookie, and he might have just been drafted for his return abilities. So with that being said, I'll transition into the kick return battle, because this is one I'm really focused in on because of the departure of Andre Roberts.
Yeah.
I think Andre Roberts, we talked about it last week with the thigh doctor. He was saying that I think people underappreciated Andre Roberts, and I agree with him. I do. I don't know if it's the majority of people, but I think there's enough people. There's a faction of people that really just didn't see value in keeping Andre Roberts. But I'm pretty sure he got like 2 years, $5 million from the Texans. Like, I'm a little upset that the Bills didn't offer something in that same realm, especially considering how much cap space we have right now. Like, I'd be okay with, I mean, I'm okay with how the roster sits right now. Do I want it to improve? Of course. But I'm okay with how the roster sits right now. Imagine if we spent $3 million a year for 2 years on Andre Roberts, and the roster is exactly the same as it is right now, but we have Andre Roberts. Like, it would obviously make things a lot more difficult when it comes to the wide receiver room, because we would have to keep another one. But I mean, how do you feel about this kickoff return, this punt return battle going on? Who do you think's going to come out on top right now? And how confident are you in whoever it may end up being? How confident are you in them, especially compared to what Andre Roberts did last year?
Yeah, Andre Roberts is a top 5 return man in the NFL, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Like, he is probably, I think last year he was either first or second in return yards. Like, he was good at his job. So it's hard to replace a man like that. But if I had to put somebody there with keeping Stevenson on the practice squad, I'd probably pick McKenzie, just because I know he has some experience. Even though he is more on a wiggle speed, I think he could still get both jobs done.
Yeah, that's where it makes it really difficult for me when it comes to the wide receiver room, because last year we had the luxury of Andre Roberts, and he was able to do kick and punt returns.
Right.
And that brought the whole narrative of, why are the Bills using 2 roster spots on guys like Roberts and McKenzie when we can just lump them together and find a player that's both of them combined? Someone that can do kick and punt return, but also play offense well, which is obviously what McKenzie does. I think McKenzie can absolutely play punt and kick return. We know he's more the punt returner primarily, but I think he absolutely could be the kick returner. It's just going to come down to his decision-making and his ball security. To me, he's the leader in the clubhouse, but we keep seeing this as a position group that the Bills aren't comfortable with yet. Like, obviously they brought in Stevenson. They signed Brandon Powell. I'm pretty sure, I'm not sure, I'd have to look into it. I know Lance Lenoir is a faster guy. I don't know if he has return ability, but like, they keep bringing in these guys, or at least trying people out for these return positions. And it just kind of tells me, like, how much confidence do they really have in McKenzie this year going into training camp as the leader in the clubhouse for the return man? Like, do you get this feeling like they're not too confident in him?
Yeah, I feel like the return play in Buffalo is huge. Like, it's always been a good part of our team. Is we've always had a pretty relatively good returner, and we've had good return game and special teams and stuff like that. So going from having great special teams to not having a lock guy who we know is going to be really good at special teams is tough to watch. So I'm not super confident in McKenzie, but I still believe that he can get it done.
Yeah. No, I definitely do too. Like, I have the confidence that he can get it done. I just don't have the confidence to say that he will get it done, because I need to see it first. I really do. And I think that's where a lot of us stand. That's honestly where I stand with Stevenson. It's like, yeah, I saw he could do it a little bit in college, but can he do it at this next level? Jason, I see you coming in saying, how much experience does Breida have in the return game? Pretty sure he hasn't returned kicks. I don't think he's ever returned punts in the NFL. I don't think he's returned any kicks in the NFL since his rookie season with the 49ers. And even then, it was only like 5 or 6. So it's something that he's probably being asked to try, because obviously, like we just talked about, there's some concern as to who that starter is going to be. And of course, the Bills are going to do their due diligence to figure out who the best guy at that position is. So I think we'd all be foolish to assume he's not getting run, but I don't know if he's like really in the mix to be that guy who's starting in that position. Boy, that would make it really difficult to cut him, though. What would you think about Matt Breida being our kick returner? Because then it's like, you gotta suit him up for game days too. We might end up having 4 guys suited up for game days at running back if he's the returner, maybe.
Right. I mean, personally, he would be someone I would cut to keep another position somewhere else, like either the 7th wide receiver or another defensive lineman, defensive end, something like that. But I mean, the lack of experience really is what it is for me. Like, I don't think I can get behind that because of the lack of experience.
Right. No, that makes sense. It's interesting you actually you went there specifically with like him as the dude that you would take off this roster to make an extra space for the wide receiver. Because I'll segue off of that, but I'll also say I also would say that I'd like to keep 3 running backs, and I think that's a way that we can do that. But you also talked about the defensive line, and if I think we all acknowledge how deep this defensive line is, and there's a chance that the Bills keep 10 instead of the traditional 9 that they usually keep on the defensive line. But if they're keeping, we talk about like where they're going to lop off if they keep 7. Imagine if they keep 7 wide receivers and they keep 10 defensive linemen. That means you got to lop off 2 positions. You got to lop off 1 from 2 different positions. And I think for my money, I'd like it to be 3 running backs, but that 3rd one has to do something on special teams. Chris, I see you coming in saying Tywan Jones has kick return experience. Like, that's another avenue that could be taken. You keep 3 running backs, and Tywan Jones is the 3rd who can do kick return and other special team stuff. But then if you're keeping a 10th defensive lineman as well, you got to find another position. And I think that other position is tight end. We've kept 4 tight ends in the past with McDermott and Bean. And I just don't think this offense necessarily needs a 4th tight end. I just don't really see the reason to roster 4 tight ends. There's been this whole chronicle of talk about Tommy Doyle and Spencer Brown being like your pseudo tight ends and being able to play in line as an eligible receiver as your 4th tight end. And I mean, that's an avenue. That's a way that we can kind of finagle our final roster and make it look like a way that we really have 53, but we also kind of have 4 tight ends, even though we only have 3 tight ends on the depth chart and things like that. So I'll ask you, would you have anything to disagree with when I say running back and tight end as the 2 positions? If you're hypothetically saying we're keeping 7 wide receivers and we're keeping 10 defensive linemen, are those the 2 position groups, running back and tight end, that you would take one away from?
Yeah, either running back and tight end. I also don't think there's a need for 4 quarterbacks.
Oh, right. Yeah. So we had 3 quarterbacks last year with Fromm as whatever he was last year, COVID insurance. But I agree with you. That's actually a great counterpoint. Yeah. Who would you keep as the 2, or I guess I'll frame it in
Trubisky.
Yeah, we're keeping Trubisky. So that's why I stopped. I'll frame it this way. Who do you want to see on the practice squad? Jake Fromm or Davis Webb?
I like Fromm for I know it's lack of experience, but he's young and he hasn't really gotten a shot yet. So I'd like to see what he's able to do. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it's a really hard question right there because Davis Webb is very intelligent. Right. And it looks like he has a good relationship with Josh Allen.
Right. Yeah, those videos of them like sprinting to and from drills and stuff like that.
Right.
That's the thing. That's what makes me like so upset about this Fromm pick and like what we did in the draft to go get him. It just seems so backwards. And now here we are. Everyone's just like, no one knows what the plan is with him. But that's kind of that's kind of why I want him to be the guy on the practice squad, because I want it to seem like there was a plan here. I don't want it to seem like, we just picked the best guy available and we had no plan for him. Like, why are we picking best player available if there's no plan for him? That's what bothers me about best player available. So then you talk about Fromm and it's like, I want him to be the guy on the practice squad because I want him to be the guy that can actually live up to or even exceed his draft position. Because if Trubisky isn't here next year, which he probably won't be, we don't have a backup. And could it be Davis Webb? Of course. But I'd like to see us get something out of that 5th round investment. And I'd like to see us develop Jake Fromm a little bit and make him a quality backup, because I think he's a dude that could live as a Chase Daniel kind of role and be a backup for his career, make some good money being a backup for his career. So
Completely
that's why
agree.
I would pick Jake Fromm, but it's really Jake Fromm gets me up in arms, man. I'll transition though to the defensive line. I tried to transition earlier and then we got to quarterbacks, but I want to get your opinions on the 9 or 10. Do you think that they'll keep 9 or do you think that they'll keep 10?
It's so hard. Like they traditionally do keep 9, but there's such depth at this defensive line and so much young talent that we need to let at least try out that I think we're going to keep 10.
Yeah, that's where I am. Like I really think with the way the Buffalo Bills and Sean McDermott have been running this defense since they got here, it's been so much investment into the defensive line. Like you saw them get rid of Marcel Darius so they could like tear it down and build it back up from they want it to be. Fresh start. And it just seems like this is a position that they put so much emphasis on. So if they have all these guys that they think are capable of contributing on day in, day out, any given Sunday, why not keep extra dudes if it means taking someone off the back end of the roster that really might not even do much? So I think it's going to be 10 as well. Obviously, that's contrary to what the trend and the pattern has been. But you think about the 10 guys you keep, and it's like I could list them all, but really what it comes down to is if they're keeping 9, there's people like, I guess people will say Mario Addison's on the bubble. I think he's on the bubble because I think everyone's a little upset that he hasn't lived up to his contract.
Right.
But he's not really cuttable. Like I'm pretty sure it's like 6 to 8 million in dead cap or something like that.
It's a lot of dead cap to cut him.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, we have space, and it's like we're already paying him anyway, so we can afford to take that dead cap. But like, why would we? He really wasn't terrible last year.
Exactly.
He just wasn't as good as what we paid him to be, which is everyone can be disappointed about that. I'm disappointed about that.
Right.
But there's so many people on the bubble. Like, thank you, Jason. I see that Obata's on the bubble. You can make the argument, like I said, for Addison being on the bubble. Daryl Johnson's on the bubble. Mike Love always has good preseasons. He's on the bubble, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. Justin Zimmer's probably going to be on the bubble if you're keeping 9 defensive linemen. Like, same kind of argument that I was talking about with Addison. Like, we guaranteed some money for Vernon Butler, so it's going to make it really hard to cut him. It's not quite the same dead cap, but it's still dead cap. So there's a lot of guys that you don't want to see go. And I'm not sure the likes of Obata, Zimmer, and Johnson, I don't think we'd see more than one of them slip through to our practice squad. I think Daryl Johnson,
gone.
I don't know why. I feel like I actually think Daryl Johnson would be the one to slip through. For whatever reason, I think Zimmer and Obata would be the ones that would be snatched up immediately. And I think Daryl Johnson would be the one that slips through. What do you think, though?
I think Daryl Johnson would go fast because of his special teams ability and how good he does play on special teams. I think a team would see that and they'd be like, we can work with this, get him a little bit better at pass rushing, playing against the run, and then use him there as well.
Right. Yeah. I did like slight little, I wouldn't call it a deep dive. I'll call it a shallow dive into Daryl Johnson, some of his snaps from actually playing on defense and not special teams. And he really didn't look terrible last year. I actually think he has some great potential. Like, he really does. But how much are we willing to just continue investing in potential when we're in a Super Bowl window? You want guys that are ready to step up right now. And Obata is someone that could do that. He's someone that could absolutely do that. But if they keep 9, they don't, like, how does Obata make this team anyways?
Right.
So that's why I think it's 10. But I mean, you think about players like Obata, maybe, I don't think Zimmer, but players like Obata specifically, like, he could find himself, if the Bills keep 9, he could find himself on the trade block, because I feel like he has a good market for his abilities. Like, teams are always looking for edge rushers. And not only that, he has the versatility to reduce down if he has to. I think he's got a great skill set, and I'd like to see him make this roster, but it's like, this whole 9 or 10 thing, like how are they going to make it work? And I'd like to see 10.
I completely agree.
It's tough to figure
There's
out.
way too much depth on this D line to not keep 10.
And jumping off of that, I'll segue off of that. There's so much depth on this entire roster. It's going to be hard for a lot of guys to make this team. So I'll ask you, I thought the Bills had a great UDFA class. I like a lot of the undrafted free agents that they picked up this year after the draft. Do you think there's a chance that any of them can make this final roster? Or do you think that most of them are just destined for the practice squad or just getting cut in general?
I have 2, just because I believe we can use a little bit of secondary help. I think that's our weakest and probably our oldest in the safeties position. So I like Tariq Thompson personally, just because he's a ball hawk. He's young, and he could sit behind Poyer and Hyde and learn a lot and end up being a great player. But I also like Nick McLeod.
Right. Okay, awesome. Well, you just stole mine, buddy. All right. No, I really like Tariq Thompson. When I was scouting Darren Hall a lot this offseason because the Bills were linked to him, and Tariq Thompson kept making plays. Dude's a ball magnet. Even if he's not making like interceptions or forcing fumbles or picking up fumbles, whatever it is, he's always around the ball. Like even if he's not making the play, he's always around the ball. But the thing that's so interesting about him is like I don't even know if he's a true safety, because all the reps that I saw him taking, he was taken from the slot. Like he was playing nickel corner, or at least like some type of scheme where he's guarding the slot receiver most of the time. And if he can blossom into someone that's like a Jordan Poyer, where he can defend people on that part of the field, but he also has the ability to drop back and play a deep half, a deep third, a deep fourth, that would be insane. This dude would be insane. And his instincts are next level for what he's doing. That's the thing that sets him apart for me. It's his instincts. It's just how he processes the game and just knows where to be at the right time.
He's got a great IQ for the game.
Great IQ, and that's why I like him, and that's why I like your pick. Like that's why I think he absolutely has a chance. The interesting thing is I think you picked him because he's a safety, and safety is a place that he can make this team. I'm just curious, like, are the Bills going to treat him like a nickel corner? Are they going to put him on the back half of their cornerback depth chart? Like, is that how he makes the team? Because that's probably why you were talking about Nick McLeod, because he could make the back half of the cornerback depth chart.
Absolutely.
So that's where it becomes interesting for me, because I think both areas are areas that could make the team. It's just I don't know how the Bills plan to utilize Tariq Thompson. I don't know if Tariq Thompson was utilized in the wrong way at San Diego State. I obviously don't know the coach or anything like that. But his abilities and everything I saw from him on the field tells me that he seems to be more comfortable playing closer to the line of scrimmage than further away. And I don't know if you saw his RAS score, but it wasn't too favorable to the idea of him dropping back to play a deep half. He has since nixed that and said, I'm an athletic dude. And he sure is on tape. Like he plays very fluid and athletic and very smooth. But yeah, those numbers, it's just like, what's going on here? Like I can't, I'm struggling to read between the lines here, because one thing's telling me one thing and the other's telling me the other. So I'm very split on what the hell Tariq Thompson is. All I know is I like him as a player. I just can't find a spot for him. And then, I like Nick McLeod too, like you said. But I like Nick McLeod almost for the same reasons I would like Elijah Griffin to make this roster, because I think that back end of the cornerback room, like if anyone produces enough, if anyone shows up enough in training camp, like that's the area to make this roster. That is an area like in the secondary. This secondary needs depth. We know how important Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde. We know how important they are. What happens if they go down? Who's the next man up? Who is the next man up? And right now, are you comfortable saying DeMar Hamlin's the next man up for Jordan Poyer or Micah Hyde? Because I like DeMar Hamlin, but I don't know if I'm comfortable. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's really tough to really speak on the depth in those areas, and that's exactly why we think that Tariq Thompson, Nick McLeod, I think Elijah Griffin is another name to throw in the ring for that. Those areas of this roster have a real chance of making this team. I would be remiss to not mention Quentin Morris for editor-in-chief Zach Vaughn. I know you love Quentin Morris, but we also talked about how this Bills team just probably isn't going to keep 4 tight ends, and I'd be shocked if Quentin Morris is the 3rd tight end to make this team. He could totally. I think he could do it. He could do it because he's got the skills. I see what Zach saw when he was hyping him up all pre-draft process. I think it's tough given the roster and the uphill battle that he's going to have to make. But he's someone I would love to stash on this practice squad. He's someone I would love to develop.
For sure.
He could turn into something nice. He could turn into like a Jonnu Smith light kind of thing, something like that. That's something I'd be interested in for this kind of offense. But I'm gonna open it up to the chat now. Chat, we're open up for Q&As. That's about all we had planned. But we'd love to sit here and answer any questions you guys may have. Just shoot them our way. I mean, we could talk about CBs still. We could talk about the linebackers. We didn't even touch on linebackers.
True.
There's a lot of different areas of this team to talk about, a lot of different talking points that have happened recently that we could talk about, news cycle, whatever it may be. The floor is yours, chat. Chris, I know you were in here and I saw you putting some questions in there. I will see if I can find it. This is way back when. He says, how do you guys feel about people anointing Spencer Brown as the 4th tight end in heavy packages? We kind of talked on that, but how do you feel about that?
I'm all about it. I love seeing O-linemen get love, and especially if we can put Spencer Brown out on a route and have him catch a touchdown or something like we did with Dawkins before. I think that'd be great. He's got great size for it too.
I agree. I'll echo everything you just said. I don't need to say it again because I agree with you. But I do kind of agree with Chris. I don't know if this is actually where he's coming from. I shouldn't say I agree with you. But I think people probably have been talking about this a little bit too much. Like, is it really going to happen? Or are we just talking about it because it's exciting and it's like, oh, this dude's really athletic for a tackle and he's also like 6'9" and can move really well. So is he our 4th tight end in heavy sets? And it's just like, we're probably just talking about it a little bit too much, but hey, it's still a possibility and there's not a lot to talk about this offseason. What'd you say?
I said it's a way you can make the roster.
It is a way you can make the roster. I don't think he's necessarily someone that's in threat of not making this roster, but I agree. It's a way for him to like really solidify a role and get in with his coaching staff and, keep himself out of the doghouse as much as possible.
Exactly.
Chris, I'm just going to keep going with you because you're the, wait. Chris, I'll get back to your other question. I will. Jason, I see this one. It might depend on how close the new stadium is to the old one. Will they lose some parking during construction? Ooh. Yeah, this could be rough. That would be rough in terms of tailgating. If it backs up into it, the construction, like that would really put a damper on the whole tailgating scene. I hope that doesn't happen.
I mean, it's definitely a possibility. Like, we don't know anything about what size they're trying to make the stadium or anything. So
yeah, we don't have enough information yet, but all we can do is speculate. And all I know is that would not be good. Yeah. I don't like that, but it's certainly a possibility. Hopefully it doesn't happen. Hopefully they pick a good spot that's just far enough away where it doesn't back up into the current stadium and close enough where it's still in Orchard Park and it's still not like flooding the city and making the city more hectic than it is or anything like that. Because I agree with what you said earlier about keeping it in that area. I think that's the move.
I agree.
All right, Chris, now I'm at your questions. Isaiah Hodgins, great receiver or the greatest receiver? People are on the Isaiah Hodgins train, and it's definitely because of everything that's been in the news cycle about him recently. I believe coaches and teammates have been talking him up recently. Yeah, nothing but good things. How do you feel about Hodgins, though? Like, even talk about how you felt. How did you feel about Hodgins before the draft, before he was drafted, like in 2020? How did you feel about him before then, if you even knew him? Because I didn't. And then And then how did you feel about him, like, after you did highlight research and all that stuff? Like, how did you feel about him?
He has so much potential. He's great. I think that he could end up becoming the 4th wide receiver on this team.
Yeah, so very similar boat. Like, I didn't know who he was. I watched a lot of college football in 2019 going up to the 2020 draft. He was someone that slipped under my radar. And when I looked into him, I was pleasantly surprised. I looked into him and I was like, this dude could be a Larry Fitzgerald light. He's not.
Right.
Don't get this wrong. He's not Larry Fitzgerald. Larry Fitzgerald is one of the greatest to ever grace the field. But he is really good at what he does as a big slot. And even more, he can actually win on the outside.
Yep.
He's someone for, I don't know how, but he's got this great route running savvy for someone who sits at like, or stands at 6'3". I think he's like 210, 215. If he can get like a little bit more muscle on his frame, I feel like he's just a little slender, but still keep that athleticism. I really think you're right on the money saying like this dude could be wide receiver 4. Because obviously we know this wide receiver room is probably older than it is younger. We have guys like Stephon Diggs, obviously under 30, guys like Isaiah McKenzie, guys like Gabe Davis, but Stephon Diggs is like 27, so he's only getting older. He's only like, he's probably just now hitting his prime. And then from there, we have a few years to marinate with that. But it's really Gabe Davis and Isaiah Hodgins, because Isaiah McKenzie's only on a 1-year deal. We can't guarantee that he's going to be back.
Right.
But yeah, I agree with you. Like, if this dude continues with Isaiah Hodgins, that is, if he continues with his development, everything positive that's been said about him, I think he could absolutely be wide receiver 4 on this team. Probably 2022, maybe even by the end of this year. Who knows? Maybe something will happen. Hopefully nothing happens, but I'd love for him to just be like one of the greatest wide receiver 5s in the game for this year. But yeah, no, in 2020, he could absolutely end up being like what Gabe Davis was last year. He could absolutely end up being that quasi tight end, that dude that comes in on spread offense looks, and he's really just playing a detached from the offensive line tight end position.
Yep.
Yeah, he's got a lot of skills. It's just going to be about refining the things that he's not so great at, like his release off the line of scrimmage, beating press coverage, things like that. But he has what it takes. He's definitely not the greatest receiver ever, Chris, but I know where you're going with that. Who would help?
Stephon Diggs with his release and all that stuff. I feel like he did a great job with Gabe Davis last year trying to help him out. I think if he does the same thing for Hodgins, it's going to be scary.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point, because Stephon Diggs is probably one of the best in the league when it comes to release.
Yep.
I think he's like top 3 when it comes to route running.
Agree.
And I was going to say, when you said that Stephon Diggs can help him out with that, I was going to say that Cole Beasley could also help with that.
True.
Problem is, it's like, I don't know how true it is, though, because Cole Beasley wins in such a different way from the slot than Isaiah Hodgins potentially will.
Right.
Obviously, it's just like long stride versus short stride, like quick and choppy, like, making your defender kind of play on his heels, because Cole Beasley's taken like 5 steps for every Isaiah Hodgins 2 steps.
Right.
So it's a little different. They're going to have to win in different ways. Not saying like Stephon Diggs is 6'3" or anything like that, but they could probably mirror each other's play styles a little bit closer than a Cole Beasley to a Isaiah Hodgins. I would definitely like to see him get better at getting off the line of scrimmage, though. That's the one thing I think I really want to see from Isaiah Hodgins specifically. Let's see. We got this quick one from John saying Kendall and Alec competition is a good thing. And I think this is the overwhelming point of this offseason. As annoying as it is for us to try and figure out who's going to make this final roster, these are all such great problems to have that we've never really had I know we're both young, so we really haven't gotten to experience these kind of things. But it's so nice to have these kind of things where it's like, I don't know who the 6 wide receivers are that are going to make this team. Cause usually it's like, I don't really care who the wide receivers are past the 3rd guy. But now it's like, 3. Yeah, but now it's like I actually care, and it's awesome. It's awesome to see the bottom of this team, the bottom of this depth chart, like actually getting some love, because if we cut them, they're probably going to make a team somewhere else, because we're one of those teams that actually has a good roster now.
Yep.
Yeah, it's exciting.
It is exciting.
So I'll get to Nabil's right here. I'm assuming that's the question. How do you think the D-line rotation is going to look among Hughes, Addison, Epinesa, Boogie, Rousseau, and Obata? So he's predicting that those are the guys that'll be primarily rotating. We'll run off that assumption. I'll answer first. I think Hughes and Addison will have a slight reduction in snaps this year relative to last year, just simply because they're older than they were last year. I don't think that slight reduction is going to turn into like a 20% snap share. I think they'll probably hold the majority of the snaps from the edge position, but I think they'll definitely have it dialed back. But I think the reason for that is because we're going to see so much growth in season from Epinesa, Boogie, and Rousseau. I think week 1, we could see Hughes and Addison playing like 50 to 60, maybe even 70% of the snaps. But then moving on from week 1, those guys are really going to get more and more snaps, like just because of how they're developing in season. What do you think about snap share and how this defensive line would rotate?
So I see a little bit more of Rousseau inside on earlier downs, like rundowns. I think he could help out our interior offense or defensive line like he did in college. Right. But I also believe that he will get a decent amount of the 3rd and long touches on the outside playing at the end, because he's a fast, athletic edge rusher, and he will be able to get to the quarterback. But I do agree. I think Hughes and Addison will have the majority of the snaps, followed by Rousseau, Boogie, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I'm like, as excited as I am for Boogie and Rousseau, I'm almost more excited for Epinesa right now. And I don't know why that is. And like, obviously I've done the film sessions on all 3 of them. And after doing the film sessions, my initial thoughts were like, I like Carlos Basham the best. Those were my initial thoughts. But now it's just kind of, I don't know, it's flipped on its head. I'm really excited to see what Epinesa does this year. It's probably just because I'm drinking the Kool-Aid on all the hype he's getting right now. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what Epinesa does this year. How did you feel about Epinesa? I guess when we drafted him last year, his performances last year, and now, how do you feel about Epinesa?
I was pretty high on Epinesa last year. I was really into it going out, like after the draft when we drafted him. I was really into it. I thought he was going to be one of the best players on the team, one of the best D linemen.
Same.
He kind of underperformed. So, I mean, I was a little unhappy with that. But I think there is so much room for improvement, and it's going to happen either this year or next year. And he's going to be either a starter or top 2 in the rotation.
Yeah, he really seems mentally there this year, as well as obviously physically, after all of the changes he had to make to his body and everything like that. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what he does this coming year. Daniel, we'll get to your question. How many linebackers do they keep? Who do they keep? And who do they keep at linebacker? Alec, I'll start with you. I can pull up my chart real quick just to give you names if you need them. Yeah. But off the top of the head, how many do you think they will keep, and who do you think they will beat?
I would say probably 5 to 6. I think obviously you have Edmonds and Milano. I'm trying to think. His name is slipping my mind.
Klein?
Yeah, Klein. There was, oh my God, everybody's name is slipping my mind.
I got Dodson. That's Dodson. The other one who was on the roster last year. Yep. Andre Smith was also on the roster last year, and Tyler Medikevich also on the roster last year. And then there's 2 more that we signed this offseason in Tyrell Adams and Markel Lee. Yeah, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 right now signed. I might be missing one because this is an old Excel sheet that I made. But we have 8 right now that I believe are still on the roster. And I'm pretty sure, Chris, you can fact check me on this if you're still in the chat. I think 6 is what they usually keep. But what do you think it could be 5? Because I heard you say 5 or 6. Because I honestly, I think there's a chance it could be 5.
Yeah, I think you definitely could get rid of one position or one linebacker and keep another position. Like we've been talking about all day, it's going to be a hard team to make. So I think that's a possibility of 5 ending up on the final roster.
Yeah, because the way I see it is like that you want linebacker depth. Like you really do. Because obviously we saw what happened with Edmonds and Milano last year, like both playing hurt through majorities of the season. And you want to have depth and good depth behind them. But is that 6th linebacker really going to do anything other than play special teams?
Right.
And if he's really only going to play special teams, like, I don't know, it really comes down to what they do with Tyler Medikevich. And I think because they restructured his contract, I think he's guaranteed to stay.
Right.
But he's not necessarily someone I like to see on defense. He's someone I love on special teams. Yeah, he's just not someone I really like to see when they're playing defense. So then it's like, okay, if we're keeping Medikevich, I think we need to keep 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what makes it difficult. But the 6 to pick are very difficult because, like you said, it's definitely going to be Edmonds, Milano, and Klein as the locks.
Right.
Medikevich, you could sneak in as a lock. So that's 4 right there. And you only need 2 more. A lot of people like Tyrell Adams because of how productive he was last year on a really bad Texans defense. I'm pretty sure he led that team in tackles. Markel Lee is someone I believe he played for the Raiders last. It's kind of on the younger side. I believe he's under 28. But then if you're talking about youth and the chance of someone developing into greater than what they are now, I really love Tyrell Dodson.
I love Dodson too.
Like how he played in the first Dolphins game, he stuck out like a sore thumb to me. He was making flash play after flash play. Of course, he made mistakes. He's still a young guy. He's still learning.
Right.
But he was making some real flash plays while he's learning, and that's something you'd love to see. I think for my money, he's like the first dude I want in after those locks. Tyrell Dodson after. If you're locking Edmonds, Milano, Klein, and even Medikevich, Dodson is like the 5th guy that I want in there, no doubt, without any contention or anything like that. And then up to the 6th guy, that's just up for grabs in my book. Like I couldn't tell you who it's going to be. If I had to pick, I might pick Andre Smith purely because I like what he did last year on special teams. But if you're telling me that 6th guy, you want him more for defensive prowess because we already have Medikevich,
right? Then
I'd probably lean Tyrell Adams.
Yeah.
But it's tough. It's really tough to project this linebacker group. I don't know. This linebacker group specifically seems like a tough one, especially because of the fact that we added 2 extra guys this offseason because it seems like an area that we wanted to bolster. We wanted to bolster that depth. So I will click on this last one and try to check if there's any more questions below, but this could be the last one if no one comes in with any more. See Jason saying, will we regret cutting Bojo? What do you think, Alec?
Yes.
Yeah, you think so? Yes. Why?
I think he was great. I thought he never did anything wrong. Every punt was great. I didn't see a problem. I didn't see why we had to cut him.
So I'll play devil's advocate. I mean, he was great last year. Don't get me wrong. He was not good years prior to that. Like, not good at holding, too. I wasn't even going to say that. He's not good at holding. But specifically in terms of consistency, he was not good in 2019. And I don't know if he was even on the team in 2018. He might have joined like mid-year 2018. But he just he would give us those booming punts and then he would shank one for like 25 yards. And it's like, dude, all we need is like 50, 40 yards or something like that in hang time. You don't have to boot it 60 to 70. Just like do at least the bare minimum. And sometimes, I don't know, the rattling consistency got to me. And that's really the thing that bothered me. But you could also make the same argument when it comes to Matt Hawk. Matt Hawk is definitely someone that he's better at holding for kicks. He has better accuracy when it comes to getting those coffin corners and not getting touchbacks, because that's what Bojo was so bad with last year.
Yeah.
He just couldn't avoid the end zone when it came to trying to pin people deep. But when it comes to like field position stuff, like I want Bojo. Like that's what we're going to miss this year. Like God forbid if the Bills go 3 and out, which they didn't do much last year. If they do it more this year, we're going to feel those ramifications and the impact of losing Bojo, because you stall out from the 25-yard line, Bojo can get it to the opposite 25-yard line and act like it's just a kickoff.
Right.
But I don't know if Matt Hawk can do that. I haven't sat back and watched Matt Hawk tape. I know we got hopefully people on the replay or even people in the live chat know there have been people clamoring for a Reed Ferguson, Tyler Bass, and Matt Hawk film session, and maybe I'll just have to do that because I don't know enough about Matt Hawk. Thank you, Chris. I see this. He was claimed but ended the year on injured reserve.
Okay.
All right, so I guess it was just 2019. But yeah, back to I want to actually answer the question. I don't think we'll regret it. I think this offense will be able to get at least to our own 40-yard line, our own 35-yard line enough to make it feasible for Matt Hawk to pin teams inside the 20 and inside the 25. But yeah, it's a tough one. It's tough to project punters.
Right.
It's tough for me to sit here and just be like, oh yeah, he's going to be a worse punter than that guy was. What am I talking about? I don't know. All right, we'll do this last quick one and then we'll sign off. But do you think Hodgins makes the 53? Because we talked about 7 versus 6. Do you think he's making it?
Yeah. I think he does make the team. I think he's 6 right now. Like he is, no matter if it keeps 6 or 7, he will be on the roster.
It's funny because last week you were like very into Stevenson.
Yeah.
And like you've kind of amended that a little bit.
Yeah. I saw a lot more film this week.
Yeah.
And realized how he actually looked on film, and it was a lot better than I remembered.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I'm still very hopeful for Stevenson, but based off what we know, I think it's fair to say that Hodgins is probably that 6th guy. He has less of that uphill battle. He's more familiar with the team, the people in the facilities, all that stuff. Actually, Stevenson knows a fair amount of people on the roster. I'm pretty sure he grew up friends with Tre'Davious White's younger brother.
Yeah, that's small world.
I know, right? Just nuts. But yeah, I think you're right. I guess Stevenson probably is that odd man out who has more of that uphill battle. But it's tough for me to sit here and just say like, yeah, Hodgins makes it 53 here on June 20th. But no, I think I'm with you. I think he does make the 53. I think they want to give him every chance they can. I think they have a better chance of getting him on the roster than sneaking him onto
the practice squad. That's
actually tough to say though, because he was also drafted lower than Stevenson was.
That's true.
You know, like more teams passed on Hodgins than they did Stevenson. But it is what it is. It is what it is. I'm sticking with it. Hodgins makes it 53. All right. Well, that's it from us tonight. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I hope we got to all of your questions. I hope I didn't miss any. I hope you enjoyed the stadium talk, training camp talk. We can't wait for training camp to start. Like, right? It can't come fast enough. But before we sign off, I want to make sure everyone knows to check out thebuffalofanatics.com. That's where you can find all of our work, not just mine and Alec's work. Everyone's work, including Zach, editor-in-chief, including the thigh doctor who was on with us last week. Who's at Eiston is doing a lot of Wall of Fame work. Those are really cool. If you like history of the Buffalo Bills, you should really check out his work. He does a lot of good ones. Riggs does some good ones when it comes to polls. He puts polls up on Twitter and then makes an article about those polls. His most recent one is about awards, who's going to win what awards this year for the Buffalo Bills in terms of NFL league-wide season awards. It's a good one because There's ones that could be argued that didn't even make the poll, but he just presented the ones that he thinks are most likely, and they probably are the most likely. But point is, there's a lot of good work on thebuffalofanatics.com when it comes to these writers, us writers at the Buffalo Fanatics, and it would really mean a lot if you guys check it out. We spend a lot of good time and effort into it.
Yes,
we
sir.
love what we do, but we also we want to know how you guys think, what you guys think about it, if you think we could be doing better, any questions you may have, if you agree or disagree with us. Any interaction, any engagement works for us. It helps us. It also helps you. So appreciate the support, and we'll be back next Sunday with more of the same from Alec and I, and hopefully we get another guest on here next Sunday to chop it up with us. But that's it for us tonight from the writer's room. Hope you enjoyed it, and have a good rest of your Father's Day, Alec and everyone else out there.
Yep. Go Bills.
Go Bills.